Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. So today's video, we are going to be doing some harvesting. We have rain coming in over the next 5 days, and so I felt like it was time for me to go ahead and get some of these things out of the garden. We have turnips that I definitely need to go ahead and get out of the garden. We have some kale, some greens and different things that I want to go ahead and get out of the garden and get those things preserved. I really want to preserve a lot of my greens by canning them. However, I need to get these kale plants out, or kale leaves out. And just in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and freeze those. So when I freeze those, they'll basically kind of go in for soups and just different things like that. Yesterday I came out and did some maintenance on my tomatoes. Now, I am the type of person with tomatoes, every year I've experienced different things, but I've never experienced a great tomato harvest. So this year I went ahead and trimmed them up because we have the cattle panels. I trimmed especially these front two front two beds because they were getting taller, and they're basically, all of them are almost reaching the cattle panel, or not, they're at the bottom of the cattle panel. So I went ahead and trimmed them up to about 18 inches, and then we're going to trellis them that way. Now, I'm going to be honest and tell y'all, I'm not going to remove every sucker. I know that that's kind of contrary to what a lot of people do, but for me, in the past, I have pruned my tomatoes way too much and not gotten any fruit. So this year I have close to 70 tomatoes, and so I have a little wiggle room to kind of test it. Now, my determinate tomatoes, I'm not doing that way. I've literally just kind of trimmed off those bottom leaves. But as far as my indeterminates, I just want to kind of see over the years what it is that I'm, changing that actually works. And I advise that for anyone in the garden. If you're in your garden and you're watching all of these YouTube videos and you're taking the advice of a ton of different people, that's totally fine to get that advice. But sometimes when you're in the garden, you're going to basically have to just try it yourself, because that's the best way. What works for one may not work for you. So try it and see. Now, with these tomatoes here, I haven't noticed too much going on here. I did notice this morning that there's one that's kind of heavily dealing with some aphids on that one. So it's supposed to rain, and so hopefully that'll blast it off. But if not, I'll go ahead and just try to get a water hose and blast that off. I mean, it's really nothing else you can do. I really am not at a point where I want to be using sprays for anything. So that's where we're at with these. Now, this bed down here, I've been dealing with some spots on the leaves. It could be early blight, could be a lot of things. We've had so much rain. But what I went ahead and did was just clip all of those leaves up, and hopefully that will deal with that. I do know that there's sprays. The garden, I believe, does like a hydrogen peroxide spray. And then I think Luke over at My Gardener does like a baking soda deal. I don't know that we're at that point. We may be, but I think what I'm going to do is, like I said, because I've clipped quite a bit off over the last couple of days, I'm going to give him some time and just see what happens. We could have dealt with it, could have not dealt with it. But undoubtedly, as you're going through the season, you're going to have different issues. Tomatoes are one of those things that I've always panicked about, because I noticed so much in my tomatoes, right? So they're either going to go or they're going to grow. It is what it is. Another thing that I'm a little concerned about is my cucumbers. I typically never have issues with my cucumbers, but I'm noticing this year that with my cucumbers, they've grown, but they're really pale. So I put some fertilizer on them last night, and we're just going to give them some time. If they don't do well in the space, because that bed that they're in, it was one of the newer beds that we just put soil in. All of the beds are new, but the other ones had stuff in them, so I'd already amended those beds. If they don't grow well there, then what I'm going to end up doing is where the peas are at, because they're starting to peter out, I'll go ahead and put some seeds there. And if anything, I will take these turnips out and put some cucumber seeds up here in the front of this bed and just kind of let them sprawl out a little bit. I don't know. I have the space. We'll see what's going on. I did start to harvest some of our potatoes, and I'll show you guys those. In one of my previous videos, I talked about how my potatoes, the red potatoes, were starting to turn yellow. Well, little did I know, red potatoes are typically ready to harvest within 60 to 90 days. So I don't necessarily believe that they had any type of, and they may be dealing with some issues, but I think they were just ready to harvest because we got quite a bit out of those. So just going to be walking around the garden this morning while we have the chance before the rain comes. And we're basically just going to be harvesting some things and kind of looking at some things. I don't know, I'm looking at this tomato plant and kind of seeing some coloring on the leaves, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. I mean, honestly, y'all, if I stressed about every little leaf color out here, it would literally take the joy out of gardening for me. And that is one thing that this year I have decided I'm not going to allow that to happen. So I'm going to harvest what I have, and I'm going to take care of what I can and just go from there. So let me go get my harvest baskets, and I'm going to set you guys up on the tripod, and we're going to start harvesting. All right, so over here in this patch, we have some kale, and this kale is getting really big and doesn't really show any signs of getting ready to bolt anytime soon. So I'm going to cut back some of these leaves, and I just kind of feel like as long as they're growing, I'm not going to pull the plant out. When I see that it's time to pull it out, I will. However, I feel like these kale plants are probably overcrowding the tomatoes back here because these tomatoes haven't grown a whole lot. So I don't know, maybe this will help, but I'm going to go ahead and get some of these leaves clipped and just see if that helps a little bit. Now, as I'm harvesting these, I'm definitely keeping in mind that I have to do something with these, right? And that makes it really hard for me. I don't know if any of you guys are like this, but when we are heading into the summer months, you know, you've just kind of put out your spring crops and you're getting into that place where it's time to start thinking about preserving. I struggle with that, right? I struggle a little bit with that change. And it's crazy because I know that we're doing all this for that purpose, right? But I think it's just switching gears that I'm just like, you know, man, that kind of came quick. I think with a lot of these, I am probably going to be doing like kale chips and different stuff like that. And then some of them I will go ahead and freeze up, put in my freezer. And then if I have any more that grow quite a bit, then I'm going to go ahead and make different or do greens. My cabbages are still doing pretty well, so I don't want to mess with those. But these lettuces, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. So I'm just going to let y'all watch me work for a little bit. All right, guys, so as I begin to kind of pull these plants and harvest these leaves, We don't realize just how much of a harvest we have. We were actually able to get a big pot of greens for dinner last night, and we were able to put quite a bit in the freezer for future meals. So I'm really excited about this harvest. They were amazing, and I cannot wait to see if they're going to grow more. And if not, we will get more in the fall. Now, a lot of these leaves are starting to get holes in them, and that's okay. Some of the ones that are really holy, I'm just gonna throw back on the ground for compost. And as they brown or whatever, I'll just turn them into the soil. But um, I'm not taking every single thing off of these plants because, like I said, they still seem like they're growing. So I'm gonna let them grow as long as they grow. So for now, this is our basket of greens this morning. Pretty excited about this. All right, so I wanted to show you guys this basket. We actually started to harvest some of those potatoes yesterday, and this is what I have. Um, they were already in the basket, so I just left them there. But I'm gonna go ahead and start harvesting some of these greens out of this bed. I don't do a lot of harvesting of the greens in this bed, so it's probably really time. So let me get some of these out of here. So guys, I am planning to invest in one of those little seats that I can put out here because bending in these beds becomes a lot. So I went ahead and got a different basket for my um, potatoes because I didn't want those to get wet. So look at these collards. I almost don't want to harvest them because they're beautiful. So my daughter just came out, and you want to start with the turnips? You want to? Okay. Let me get these, and then we'll work on the turnips. So we're gonna start getting some of those turnips out of the ground. But I'm gonna get these big leaves. Ooh. Just lay them down so that we can, yeah, and then we'll show. Oh, look at these. Are they beautiful? Yay. All right. So we're gonna move over to the turnip bed. And then, do you want to get the peas? Yes. And then we're going to get those out. We have some that are bigger than others, but we're just gonna work on making some room over there. Now with the turnips, what I will most likely do is chop those up and freeze them. With our turnips, you know, of course you can eat the greens. We're gonna kind of sift through them before we even take them inside. But some of the greens are still, you know, they look edible. But some of them I'm just not gonna fool with. So we're just gonna pull everything, lay them out, clean them off. I try to get as much dirt off before we go inside as I possibly can. But basically all of these turnips are gonna come out. We have some turnips over here that I'm gonna get out, and we'll probably amend this soil with some worm castings and a little bit of all-purpose fertilizer, and maybe in the next day or so we'll get our sweet potatoes in the ground, if that's what I decide. So most of our turnips are probably going to be about this size or a little bit bigger, and that's totally fine. We planted them a little too close, I think, but we do like smaller turnips, so I'm okay with that. That's a pretty good size one right there. That's our biggest one yet. I think this batch of turnips, the turnips are a little bit bigger, but there's lots of spiders, so I'm trying to be careful where I put my hand. Those aren't as big. I do see a couple that are pretty good size. All right, so here we are just using an old garden fence door that has chicken wire on it or hardware cloth. I figured that it would be easier for me to use this to go ahead and wash off as much dirt as possible so that I don't have to fool with it when I take it inside and then have all of that dirt going down my drain, and it worked perfectly. Tonight, like I said, we started pulling up the red potatoes. We left some out here. I'm gonna go ahead before it rains and start getting some of the rest of them out of the ground. Um, there's not a lot more, but I'm gonna get the ones that I can. As I'm turning this soil, I am seeing some grubs. Not as many as I thought I would see, but I am seeing more and more. Now, I don't believe that that's the reason that these potatoes were turning yellow, but I mean, it could be, but anyway, or maybe I spoke too soon. I am seeing a lot of them. So I'm going to show you guys these grubs. I don't know if I can, but can y'all see those? Can you see those? Now, there's a few over here that I may have to go ahead and get in and just dig those up, and they may not be the red potatoes. All right, so this is editing Adrian again. I actually forgot to end the video because it had gotten so hot outside, but we did end up getting quite a few red potatoes. And like I said, the grubs were definitely there, just not sure if that's what was happening with the plants, but really excited about the harvest that we got, and we're just going to enjoy every little bit of it. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. I'll talk to you soon, friends. Bye.